Hi, everyone. It's Tracy Malone from NarcissistAbuseSupport.com. Thank you for joining my channel and watching and or listening on the podcast to this episode. Today, I'm going to be interviewing a dear friend of mine, Karen McMahon, the founder of Journey Beyond Divorce. And we are going to have a conversation that is about the sort of spiritual growth that helps us heal. I think that's the best way to put it. After a divorce, after the horrific abuse that people have taken, how do we find ourselves again? How do we do this spiritual growth? What does that even mean? It's not like I'll go to church more. It is finding yourself. And we're going to talk all about that. So I'll let her introduce herself when we get on screen here. And if you are looking for support, you can find my information on narcissistabusesupport.com. I coach people globally. I have groups that I help. So look at my site, look at the resources. We have hundreds and hundreds of blogs, articles, handouts, information. So if you're looking for answers on anything narcissist, not just divorce like we're talking about here, please visit my website because it will be like a savior to you. Everyone says that when they go, oh my God, there's so much here. So go do that. Let's go meet Karen, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome, Karen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Tracy, I'm excited about the conversation.
I know you are the founder of Journey Beyond Divorce. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I founded Journey Beyond Divorce in 2010. It was back in somewhere around 2002 when I realized that my life and marriage were more chaotic than I could handle, and I entered what was a 3.5 year high conflict divorce, and with two kids barely in grade school. And when I emerged, I had two statements. It was a living hell, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Mhm.
And then it was really hard for me to do what I was doing, which, by the way, was selling commercial printing, a dying industry, because I felt like I had just had, I mean, we're talking about a spiritual awakening and journey. I was such a refined and healed version of myself when I emerged that what I did for a living fell flat. And I just felt like there has to be something that is born out of everything I went through and everything that I learned that I'm meant to do in the world. And I pretty quickly found a coaching program. And then I was probably the first person in a 50-person class when they had the class on niche. I'm like, divorce, I'm a child of divorce. I just went through a hellacious divorce. Coaching's about transitions. I'm a divorce coach. And that the rest is history.
Uh-huh. Well, you do an amazing job, help a lot of people from all over the place. And I am so glad that you're in my life here today. And we are going to be talking about the spiritual growth, after you've had a high conflict relationship, an abusive spouse. Like, how do you see a spiritual path coming out of that? Because I know you and I have talked, and we both had this not aha, but spiritual shift in us. So, how do you think that a high conflict divorce is going to lead to something like that, or should lead to something like that?
I would say that in a big picture, any crisis that any of us run into, whether it's a health crisis, a career crisis, a relationship crisis, my belief is that it's always for us. And and it could be really hard. And so often the question we ask is, why does this keep happening to me? Or why is this happening to me? And the shift to truly begin to see the big picture and the long-term connection is, you know, what is in this for me? What are the lessons that I need to learn? What is the growth that I need? And, you and I both work with a similar um, audience. And so when you've been in an abusive relationship, and you feel so diminished and belittled and so lost, it's very easy to just look across at the person you've married and talk about all of their shortcomings and all of their abuse and everything. And so what I do with my listeners is say yes. 1,000%. And it shouldn't have been, but it was. And so let's look at what this has for you. And we have to, with gentle kindness and compassion, we have to say, what did I bring to the table? And for me, I was raised by an alcoholic dad and a rageaholic mom. There were no boundaries in my household. There was very little healthy communication in my household. There's a lot of blaming and shaming and judgment. And so my experience of intimate love was actually fairly similar to the man that I married, because it was all I knew. And so when we start looking at it, that not that I was stupid, not that I was bad, not that I stayed too long, but that I came with such a broken lens of intimate love and such a broken lens of self-love. And how is that not spiritual? How is it not spiritual for us to say, I am a living, breathing human being. I come from a lineage, and I have an opportunity in this hell that I'm going through to heal my heart, to refine my character, to be a stand for myself so that I could teach my children who have to navigate this person and this personality to. I remember talking to my 6-year-old about saying something to her dad and her saying, but mommy, he's going to yell at me. And has he ever yelled at you before? All of the time. And I
Mhm.
remember she was so young and I was like, baby, I lost my voice.
Mhm.
Don't say it so that he hears it and changes. Say it so that you speak your truth and never, ever stop speaking your truth. And if I tell you she's 27, and the message landed very well.
Yay.
But it made such a big difference that I was able to then kind of pay it forward to my children.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference. I mean, I think if we look at what spiritual growth looks like, it's not that we're gonna go and do yoga and hum all day. Like that's what some people interpret spirituality as. But I consider it exactly as you said. What were my lessons? If we really get into the universe thing, which is in my spiritual world, is what is the universe trying to teach me? What didn't I learn in my first marriage? And that was stuff about myself. That was the background, the why this was okay, the why I didn't speak up, the why I tolerated so much. Because you can go on and go, he did this and he did this and he did this, or she, but the reality and the spiritual question is, but darling, why did you let them?
Yeah.
Because that
And
is important.
and I would say the flip side of it is, like my mom was a rageaholic, and you don't get a pass for behaving that way. And so I could be very judgmental, I could be very nasty, I could be very condescending. And I raised my kids, and I now guide my clients on this statement. What comes out of, and I'm going to use him and her for right now, although I have a lot of male clients married to um, abusive females. What comes out of his mouth is about him, and his behavior is about him. But no matter what anyone's done to me, what comes out of my mouth and my behavior is about me. And so for me, it was also this opportunity not to just grow in self-love and self-respect and self-compassion over self-condemnation. I had a very harsh inner critic, but also to grow and to be honest with myself in the ways that I showed up that did not align with who I wanted to be in the world. And yes, I was in defense, and I was on my ear and I was overwhelmed. And yet, how do I do that with more grace and dignity? How do I navigate this divorce, not for the other person, but for me and my children, with as much grace and dignity and healing and refinement as I can?
Yeah, I think everything you're saying is what people need to understand. There's a bigger picture here, right? I'm not saying anyone who's a victim deserves to be a victim. That is not what we're saying. We're going, these people came into our life for a reason, and sometimes there's a lesson to be learned. And until we learn that lesson, which is for me twice, oh God, I still didn't learn it. God, give it to me again. And they do. And you get that lesson until it's drilled into your head. But for me, a huge part of the spiritual growth was figuring out who I was,
Yes.
learning what I'll tolerate, what is okay with me. What am I looking for if someone doesn't show integrity? What will I do? How will I set boundaries? There's so much that goes into finding out who you are. And when I teach this class on who are you and figuring out how people can go back to it, I tell this story about Runaway Bride with Julia Roberts. And in the whole thing, she didn't know what kind of eggs she liked, but every one of her six or whatever fiancés had a different kind. And she was like, "Oh, egg whites are my favorite. No, this is my favorite, just like you." And she adopted to that, right? And I equate that because it sounds like me. And I hate fish, always hated fish. And every single man, here, eat my fish. It's different. You'll like my fish. Oh, you'll like this fish. Oh, no, you never had it this way. And now the Tracy in me, while I would gag on all of those, the Tracy now would say, "I don't like fish. Thank you for your offer, but I'm not interested in tasting it, no matter what it tastes like." And if they get upset with me, I would say they're not listening to me, and I would walk away from that person, right? You have to understand what you'll tolerate and what you won't. And again, knowing I have a thing about fish, I'm not going to let that be something that I just go, "Okay, sure, I'll try your damn fish." That's not okay. If I say no, it's a boundary, and I'm watching if you listen to it, right? I never watched for that stuff before. I would just walk over, eat the damn fish, gag on it for a while, and have them make fun of me for a few days, right? Um,
And
it's
I think that even that skill of boundaries, right, Tracy, it's like I was certainly raised in a boundary oblivious household, and I married somebody who was boundary oblivious. And so learning the importance of a boundary is not a steel wall, it's not the wall of China. It's something that is flexible and movable. And when your trauma is touched, there's that invitation to protect yourself with a boundary. It's your responsibility to uphold it, not theirs.
Mhm.
And then for me, part of my spiritual journey was knowing that I have two young children who are being raised by these two very different personalities, and it is my responsibility to
Mhm.
pay forward to them everything that I'm learning and to do everything within my power to break the generational chains that go God knows how far back.
Mhm.
And, my children are emerging adults. They're knocking on 30 now. And so I've watched them be in relationships with abusive people, both my son and my daughter, and to be able to bite my tongue at times, and then at other times, when they would come to me heartbroken, completely blaming the other person, to be able to say, what feels familiar here and why? And, and what do you see in your behavior that's the pattern? And so we can't do anything about him or her. There's nothing. You have no agency across the street with them. You have no ability. But here, where you have all of this agency and authority, can we focus your attention there so that you can become the best version of yourself? And if that's not a spiritual walk, I don't know what is. I mean, I'm a Christian. My guide is I want to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And in my church, which is actually, I know there's not a lot of them, but a very healthy Christian church, the saying is preach the Bible every day and once in a while use words, because you preach with your hands and your feet. You don't preach by taking a Bible and beating the shit out of somebody with it. And so for me, coming out of my marriage and seeing what was wrong with him, And what was wrong with me? Well, all I can do is I can be the hands and feet. I can use every opportunity to be the best version of myself and to show grace and mercy. And I will say, and this may be triggering to some of your audience, but my ex-husband ended up knocking on death's door and nobody would help him. And I took him to his doctor's appointments and I drove him to the hospital and I encouraged his brother and my children. I said, he may not be around very long, and no human being, no matter how displeasing they are, deserves that alone.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know if it was the right thing to do. And I didn't do it out of codependence, not for a half a second. I actually was like, God, take this cup from me. But I felt more strongly that I had to be me in that situation. And so, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and people might be tisking at me right now, but for me, I could put my head on my pillow at night knowing that even this man who hurt me so much, in his moment of desperation and need, I could do something kind. And I felt like that spoke so much about my strength that I had built over the course of time.
And resilience. I mean, you've changed from, I'm not saying doormat, but you've changed from a
I was a
person
doormat.
that took abuse to a person that fights abuse and helps others, right? And when we're dealing with our clients, there's a factor of them being the victim. And I am not saying we weren't a victim of what's happened, but there is parts of it that we allowed. I allowed, you
100%.
allowed, right? And if it's our programming, oh, that's what normal is, whatever the reasons, those are the things we have to fix. And so, we're literally looking at this spiritual growth as to finding yourself, finding your purpose. And, your purpose is to break the generational, you know, patterns of your family. I did the whole like, I don't know, 23andMe thing. And I figured out that for like 7 generations, there's been divorces my entire 7 generations. It's our family, right? And I'm like, I want to break that. I already doubled down on that one, but I would love to break that for my child, right? So that he doesn't end up in the same place. So teaching them that, whatever happened, you were a victim, but how does that impede the emotional and spiritual growth? If you're stuck in this happened to me, and going through this process, there'll be a part where that is the appropriate, and you get fire and you get, angry so that you fight for your life at that point. So I'm
Yep.
not belittling that sort of I'm a victim, but we got to get out of victim and move into this spiritual place. So how do you think that victim holds them where they are?
Yeah. So the way I like to say it is there's a difference between being victimized
Mhm.
and living with a label of victim.
Mhm.
Anyone listening to this podcast has been victimized by abusive people, label them however you want. Choosing to go through your life with a label of I'm a victim is so disempowering. And you wouldn't want your children to feel disempowered. You wouldn't want your best friend to feel disempowered. So the journey that I think you and I, in similar ways, take people on is, how do I find my power in this divorce, which is everything's out of my control, my attorney, my finances, everybody's opinions and emotion, how quick the court runs, all of this is out of control. How am I supposed to feel empowered? Because there's one thing that is 1,000% in your control, and that's you. How you think, how you feel, how you behave is all within your control. And you can't pay that forward to your children until you do it yourself. And so the shift from victim is to look in the mirror, be powerfully and compassionately honest with yourself about what brought you to this place so that you can heal and refine. And then, rather than why does this keep happening to me, you can help your children become clear, resilient, emotionally mature, and intelligent and kind people, regardless of the other parent.
Absolutely. I love all of that. And I'm sitting here, like, as you're talking, this thing that I made. I always make things, but I have this thing that I'll put a link down below, but it's basically victim, survivor, and then to survivor, which is my word. But when you're a victim, you have low self-esteem and shame and you're unworthy. When you're surviving, you see yourself as wounded but healing. And then when you're a survivor, you see yourself as an overflowing miracle of life, right? When you're a
I
victim,
love
healing.
that.
When you're a survivor, you're seeking help. And when you're, a survivor, you're seeking help. Survivor, you're at oneness, that peace that we're talking about, that spiritual, this is who I am, and nobody's taken that from me, warts and all. I am who I am. You don't like what I do, A, B, or C, then fine. You don't have to be in my life. It's a power that we need to help people move from out of victim into a place where they go, oh my gosh, you're right. I don't want to be hopeless. Hopeful's next. And then faith in life and self is when you're a survivor. Like you move
Yeah.
through it. It's not like boom, one day you're going to be there, but your
Mhm.
evolution is through this process.
100%. And it brings me to a story. So, I emerged from my divorce with two barely school-age children. Um, I got none of the furnishings. He kept the marital home, and I had $60,000 in debt. That was my settlement. And
Okay.
so a lot of people are like, yeah, but my circumstances and my settlement and my co-parenting. And then for the next 10 or 12 years, I had a co-parent with him. This was a man who called my monthly child support check, which was negotiated to a pittance of what the law required. He called it my monthly extortion check. And out of every 12 months, I maybe got it three or four or five. And there was a lot of clashing, and there was a lot of my son would come home and throw himself on the floor, crying his eyes out because dad was the football coach. Dad like said nasty things to him in front of everybody, et cetera, et cetera. So the kids grew up. It's like I got to divorce, talk about survivor's guilt, but they still had to keep going back to the house. And so part of the spiritual journey is one could go, God, why do you keep doing this to me? Or what do you have in this for me? And so when I was able to take every situation and really guide my clients to do the same, to say, what is wanting to happen in this moment? And so rather than I'm a victim, I walked away with I was in debt for 15 to 20 years. I was digging myself out. Long time. What but I never felt a victim. Once I left, one of the things that would happen, we had a four-floor English tutor on a double dead-end street with an in-ground pool and a beautiful fireplace. And that's where I came from. And I moved into I called it the carriage house. My kids were like, it's a barn, Mom. Uh, and I was getting like third, fourth, fifth hand furniture from my mom and my aunt and anybody who would give me anything. And then the most amazing thing happened. For me, I loved this itty bitty little house. And people started coming in the front door and saying, God, this place is so amazing. I can't tell you, like dozens. There's something special. And it was the peace.
Mhm.
And my thing was, I don't need gold. I don't need a big place. What I need after what I've been through is peace. I need peace, and I need to emit love to everybody who crosses the threshold of my home. And so I had a carriage house that was really a barn, and yet people would come inside and be so touched with the home. And it's really what I created. And so for each of your listeners, no matter where you are, no matter how much you're struggling,
Mhm.
you could be brave and courageous. And it's only the brave and courageous that do this work. Brave and courageous enough to look in the mirror, to consider what you brought to the table, your people pleasing, your codependence, your conflict avoidance, your perfectionism, whatever came from your family of origin, and begin to work through those things
Mhm.
and simply work on being the best version of yourself with incredible, gentle self compassion every step of the way. You will evolve into the human being that you were created to be. And I can look back on my marriage and my divorce as a gift. And I would never be sitting here talking to you. I would never have touched the tens of thousands of lives that I've touched had I not gone through that. And I would never have been as conscious and intentional a parent as I was. And I'm so deeply proud of the young adults that my children are these days.
That is the testimony, and that is why we find ourselves. That is why we look at our warts, our things, like you said, we came in with this and that, and we don't have to hold that.
Yep.
Those kind of programming, if you would, like we have to go, you know what? That part wasn't true. That isn't like what it is. And I'll say this weird little thing, and it's completely unrelated, but it popped in my head. But when I was releasing my divorce book many years ago, my father was dying. And he goes, "You're writing a book? Who the hell would ever read your book? You never even wrote a term paper." And I proved him wrong. I said, you know what? I could hold that and go, "Up yours, and how dare you? Well, you're dead. You got yours." But I don't have to believe that. I don't have to hold that anymore because I did my whole life. You better marry well. You're never going to be able to take care. I listened to those voices. And now, with the confidence of knowing who I am and what I've done, like it's amazing. I am proud of myself, not only for this, but all of the things and the mistakes. Because even though our marriages were some of the worst things that we ever did to ourselves, look at what we've turned it into. Look at how we
Absolutely.
empower people. And again, not everyone's going to go and be a divorce coach and help people with narcissists, but for us to turn around and find the joy, find the golden thing inside of that was us.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I didn't even know I could stand up for myself. I could, it's so freeing and it's so powerful. And it's not about blaming. It's about understanding what you have to work on, whether it's fear or, whatever made you vulnerable to this person. You gotta, you gotta get yourself through those little steps because spiritual growth is baby steps. It's not like, boom, I'm spiritually all better. It's getting up when you fall down and not beating yourself up for it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think that, Tracy, you're such a beautiful example of the spiritual path because you are such a blessing to so many. Your podcast listeners, your followers, your clients, your audience, and each of you listening are going to get through what you're dealing with. And you're going to choose when, how, and who you're going to be a blessing to. And that is the spiritual growth that pays dividends for the rest of our lives.
Love that. What a beautiful thing to close with because I want you to tell everyone how to reach you. We'll put it down in the show notes, but please give us the information on how to reach you. I know you've got a great podcast. Tell me everything so everyone can hear it, and then we'll put it below.
Thanks. So, Journey Beyond Divorce is the podcast as well. JBDdivorcesupport.com is the website. And I have a team of coaches. So, we've got a nice range of one on one and group coaching available. We offer a rapid relief call. You can go to rapidreliefcall.com, and that is our gift to anybody who's struggling. We can give you a taste test, an example of what coaching looks and feels like, and have you walk away with new awareness, some baby steps, and perhaps the opportunity to work with us.
And a little hope. Like you are selling hope. You are selling the other side because you've come through it. I've come through it. And again, does everyone have to be a coach to come to the other side? Being whole is all we're meaning on the other side. It's being this invincible superpower that is never going to tolerate abuse again.
I have so many former clients who will reach out to me and say, I still say that every upset is a setup. And I still say that, and I've got all these pithy little statements out there. And I just told a friend that, and I still hear you in my head, but in a really good way. And it's like, and all of these people are finding their own way of being a blessing in their circle. And I think that I just want to thank you for having me on and for what you do in the world, because we need more than ever, we need blessings. And people like you shine such a beautiful light in a time that's pretty chaotic and scary right now.
That was the best testimonial ever. Thank you. Well, thank you, Karen, for being here. We'll put all your information down below, and everyone reach out to her. She really is brilliant. Listen to her podcast. If you're going through a divorce, I have a mixture of divorce and not divorce on my podcast, but she's boom, all talking about divorce, and she's brilliant, and she's got that team. So look her up, and let's just all agree that we're going to find ourselves and become that person that we should have been, because that's who we love. When you love yourself, you don't tolerate this stuff, right? So thank you, honey.
Thank you.
We probably could have talked all day. I hope you guys found that helpful. Karen is a wealth of information, and literally, again, we could have just talked all day and all day about the things that we want everyone to come to a place to see, not their, I don't know if it's a responsibility. I struggle with that word, but what do you need to heal so that this never happens again? So thank you for watching. If you haven't put a like on it, if you haven't subscribed to me, please do. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much.